Welcome. On behalf of the Larkspur City Council, welcome to the special meeting of the Larkspur City Council. I'm Dan Hilmer, serving as mayor this year. May we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Kandel,
I am here.
Councilmember Hara,
I'm here.
Mayor Hilmer.
Here. We have a presentation this evening. It's history and completion of the Bonaire Bridge replacement project. May we have a staff report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public. I'm Julian Skinner. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Larkspur. And tonight we have a presentation for you to celebrate the completion of the Bonaire Bridge project. As you know, we did have a subdued ribbon cutting event June 23rd out at the bridge. Due to the constraints of the bridge being open, we try to keep that into a small event. So we did say we'd come back to a council meeting and give folks who were unable to attend that event an opportunity to get another look at the whole project. And as you know, throughout the course of the construction project, I've been before you every 6 months or so, giving you a progress update and showing you what was going on the bridge. So we thought it fit to come at the end and wrap everything up with one presentation. And as many of you know, this project well precedes my time at the City of Larkspur. In fact, the project was designed and ready to go out to bid as I joined the city 6 years ago. So to help me cover the history of the project, I have with us tonight Hamid Shamsapur, who is a former Public Works Director, city engineer here at the City of Larkspur, and instrumental in getting this project kicked off and getting the federal funding, putting everything into place that led us to where we are today with a completed new bridge. So I'm gonna, at this point, hand it over to Hamid, who's going to walk through some of the history components of the project. And then as we get into a summary of the construction activities, I'll come back on and take it from there. So.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Dan Schwartz, Mr. City Manager, good to seeing you all. Pleased to be here once again. It's wonderful, beautiful, historic city of Larkspur, where I spent 18 wonderful years of my life and helping the city over many challenges. And one of the big ones was the Bonaire Bridge. And to give you a little bit of history, every 2 years in the state of California, Caltrans inspects every bridge all over the state, and they give it a rating. And any bridge over the 50 and higher considered good. Anything below 50 is considered needs some help and repair. And in our case, the analysis revealed that it's so bad, the rating is so low that spending money repairing it is not going to be helpful. So we should go for replacement. It would be better use of the taxpayers' dollars. So we embarked on that. And as you know, the whole process from when we started to when it's finished is nearly 20 years. So you can imagine what we've gone through that period. But briefly, we went through the process, secured the funding, almost 90% grant and 10% matching with local funds. And as we were going through the process of designing a bridge, finding the best architect and engineers to help us, Don McDonald was the architect and PV Ward was the engineers that we chose to help us with this bridge. And also the Doherty Bridge at the same time. We learned that if you look at the picture before you, you see the beautiful bridge on the right side of the picture, the Don McDonald's architectural rendering on top, which is very close to what it is today. And then on the left, you see the picture and what the city had done in 1994 when all the bridges were being seismically retrofitted by Caltrans. Consultants were designing it, they were busy left and right. So they were designing a seismic retrofit. And at that time, it was just a year before I started in Larkspur. The city asked the consultant, could you design a multi-use pathway for us to attach to the bridge? So right now there's only one lane, one lane in each direction for vehicular traffic. So we want to have a multi-use pathway. So that was very forward thinking on the city's part. But what consultant engineer did in a rush to design and build this multi-use pathway on one side of the bridge and attach it to the existing old structure. It looked good for a while, but after a while, the bridge has expansion joints, so it moves during the heat and contracts during the cold weather. So naturally, it elongates and shrinks with temperature. And it did that for many years. But then when the engineers designed it and attached the multi-use pathway on one side of it, can you just picture that? And the expansion joints did not necessarily match the expansion joints on the bridge. So it couldn't move the same way it used to. So it wants to move in the same direction as it used to, but because it's constrained by the bridge on one side, so it starts rotating rather than moving forward and back. And as a result, the structure concrete, as you could see in the later pictures, it started spalling and basically started shortening the life of the bridge. And it's a lengthy process we went through to find out who the engineer was and asked them to help us. And because they weren't forthcoming, we ended up suing the engineer, but the engineer that had done the bridge work for us was not in business anymore. Another company had bought them out. And as you know, when you buy a company, you buy the assets and liabilities. So the bridge company that we sued, although did not do the design, but they owned all the assets and liabilities of the company that did. So we went through the lengthy lawsuit, and we were happy to settle with a lot less, but they would not. So we went through 5 weeks of being in the court, and at the end of the trial, the jury awarded $8.3 million to the city of Larkspur for the loss of the life of the old bridge. So we used some of that money as a matching fund, and the rest of it stayed with the city for other use. So anyway, that's part of the history. And then we move forward with the design. We went through many public hearings, council members, members of the public, deciding, okay, this is a chance of a lifetime. What do we do? What kind of a design? There were those in the community who wanted a signature bridge, and there were those in the community who wanted a simple bridge. Our former council member who's here. So we went through many meetings and many hearings and reached the common. What you see today is a combination of meeting all those ideas and all those expectations, and such a beautiful design. So with that, we move forward with the design. And so if you could go to the next slide now, okay. Okay, so as you can, some of it I already explained. The old bridge structure deficient, obviously, for obvious reasons. You could see on this picture, all those columns were part of that seismic retrofit that I mentioned that happened in 1994. So not very pretty, but that's what it took to make it safe. But we need a multi-use pathway. We need barriers safe for safety, and all those were considered in the design. And what you see in the next picture is the concrete that was spalling from the structure because of the constraint of the old multi-use pathway with the new, where the bridge couldn't move naturally, and that's started the demise of the bridge significantly. So the design was for replace it with a wider seismically safe bridge, protected barrier, traffic lighting, signal improvement, and environmental mitigations that was very significant. So in the next picture, you see the summary of the project history. Original design 1958, major repairs in 1970. 94 is when I mentioned the seismic retrofit, along with that infamous class 1 multi-use pathway on one side of the bridge that led to the acceleration of the demise of the bridge and the eventual lawsuit. Again, Caltrans inspected it, and it was determined that it's beyond its useful life and it's time for replacement. So that's when we started on getting the grants and design team and everything together. And that's what we did in 2002. And while we were waiting for the design, it was so bad, the condition of the bridge was so bad that we had to actually do some temporary stabilization of the structure, because we couldn't wait for the design and construction to start in the next few years because it was that unsafe. So we did some temporary repairs and stabilization to the bridge in 2012. And here you see the what I just explained in the a minute ago about the 95 widening the seismic retrofit and the additional class 1 pathway that you could see from this renderings. It shows the movement of the bridge that I mentioned with the expansion joints, and how its natural movement was changed because of that constraint. So anyway, so we went through all that process and to find the right design, and this is what was rendered by our famous architect in 2008. And we had actually about 12 different designs that we took to the community. And this is what was finally accepted, and you could see it's very close to what's there today. So, and then I don't have to tell you how beautiful it is, how safe it is, how user-friendly it is. And for those who underneath, who use the kayak and boats that go under it, you saw the old columns, especially after seismic retrofit, how many columns were there and how not very pretty it looked. And then look at it now, very minimal columns and a lot of space to a lot of Koreans to go under, and the belvederes for people to stand and enjoy the beauty of the bridge and the surrounding area. And just this picture, I asked Julian to put this in there just to show you and describe the detail. And you would, I mean, would anybody here know why this railing looks the way it does? It was no accident. This is no just picking a design from a manual or a cookbook. The vertical members are to match the grass vegetation that's in the area. So if you look at it with that vision, you'll see that it's supposed to mimic and show you the surrounding nature and the grass that is on either side of the bridge. And the horizontal member is no accident either. That wave that you see, it replicates the wave of the Corte Madera Creek, the water. So that's how detailed, answer my good friend, that was the former council member, about some of the features of the bridge. Those are the reasons why things look like that. But there is no accident. It was all by design, and incorporated the wonderful input from the community, the wonderful leadership of the council at that time. And it was a win-win for everybody. So there you go. History was made, and proud to have been part of it. And now willing and happy to turn it over to my good friend, your current Director of Public Works, Julian, to tell you about what we went through for the construction. I'll be happy to answer any questions now or later. And also the environmental, I don't want to bore you with details. The CEQA NEPA I completed before I put it in the silver platter and left it before I left Larkspur. and left the construction. My good friend to finish here has done a great job, and the permits and coordination with utilities. These are all the construction details we don't need to bore you with, but I just gave you the highlights of the success, the design, the construction, the winning against the major force, the small. And from what I understand, the lawsuit that we won is the first in the state of California, a small city going after a major corporation and getting that amount of award. That's what I've been told. And by the way, they appealed that decision. While they appealed, the money had to sit in escrow for earning 10%. By the time a state Supreme Court decided again in our favor, the 8.3 turned into 10 million. Just a little minor note.
Quick question.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, did you testify in that trial as an expert?
Every day, every hour of the 5 weeks, I was there as the city engineer, director of public works, the face of the city, expert witness, and everything in between. I was involved from the jury selection all the way to interviewing the jurors in the hallway after the verdicts. Exactly what was the turning point, and they made a decision in our favor. So yes, 5 weeks.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. I had a great staff to take care of the floor while I was in court for 5 weeks, but I was in touch with them during the breaks and lunchtime, so I never left them alone. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
No questions, but before you leave, I just wanted to say thank you. You were doing all this work before I was, I think, even here.
Yes.
And that goes back to 2013.
Yes.
And we always look at Julian as the mastermind behind the project, but now we know better.
Yeah, he certainly played his part in managing the construction. And the construction, I will tell you, because of its close proximity to Marine General, I mean, ideally, it's best to close the bridge, tear out the old one, build a new one. It would have taken less than 2 years. Because we had to maintain it open because of the hospital mostly, we basically have to build a temporary bridge to build a new permanent bridge before we take down the old permanent bridge and then remove the old, the new temporary bridge. So to do that, I brought all the brains in the business from New York to Southern California to sit down, brain share together. Didn't brainstorm, as we say, Stanford, brain share. We brain shared, we brought all the brain power and geniuses together to deliver this beautiful piece of history to the city of Larkspur. And it's been great privilege and honor for me to have been part of it. And also, so pleased to meet you here now. I present.
And just, you did a fantastic job. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's yours.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so the truth is out there. So typically as an engineer, I always like to think of the work that I do as what they say about referees and umpires in sports is if you don't notice it, then they're doing a good job. But this is a project that I don't mind celebrating and pointing to, and certainly will be at the top of my resume, even though I only came in for the closing parts of it, because there were so many people involved in this project. And I think it's really important to celebrate and recognize all of the past council members and all of the past engineers and city engineers and staff and consultants that worked on this project. What you see over the last 5 years of construction is really just the tip, really just the end. There's so much work behind the scenes that went into making this project what it became and got us to this point where we're able to cut a ribbon and open it up. And for the most part, 99.9%, the project is finished. So you won't see me up here a whole lot talking about how great my projects are, but I'm happy to do it for this one because I don't really consider it my project. It's a huge team. And thank you, Hamid, for everything that you and your team did to get us here. So just the last slide here, we heard a lot of questions about why does a project take so long, a number of reasons. And one of them was these are all of the species that were identified, or the primary species that were identified during the environmental reviews. Highlighted the two here that really caused the construction windows to shrink because of Clapper rail, now known as a Ridgeway rail, and the steelhead in the creek. We had work windows we had to abide by during construction. Certain times of work, certain times of the year, we weren't allowed to work in the water. Or the bird, the Clapper rail, there were certain times of year we were not allowed to work on the north side of the bridge. South side of the bridge was fine. That didn't bother the bird, but we could not work on the north side of the bridge. So these were all constraints that got folded into the contract documents when it went out to bid. Other constraints here that we've talked about, other than the environmental, is a decision was made to keep the bridge open during construction. So it was built in two halves, as you've seen through the construction updates we've given before, maintaining access to all the businesses around, including emergency access to the hospital. Talked a little bit about environmental mitigation. There are some improvements that we will be undertaking as part of this bridge project. We've talked about these before. Two of the city's public docks will be replaced as compensation for the bridge project, as well as some stormwater enhancement along Magnolia Avenue. And in replacing some tidal marsh area over at Piper Park, we get to build a new dog park because the dog park now is what used to be tidal marsh. So I'll jump ahead here and start talking about the construction. These are mainly slides that you've seen in bits and pieces as I've come to you, but I think it's good to wrap it all into one here so folks can see how this project came along. So this was the early stages. We built a temporary trestle out in the creek. So we did that twice, first on the north side and then on the south side. And as you can see here, it's a wooden platform in the foreground. This is as it started out. It eventually got built the whole way across the creek. And so the crane would sit on this temporary trestle and they would essentially take apart the old bridge and build a new one from this trestle. So this is the early days of the project. The trestle is partway built and they've already started to demolish part of the old bridge. And then the first real construction activity is the boring down into the creek bed, about 100 feet or so down to bedrock for concrete piles or piers, 8 foot in diameter. These are, you see them lowering the steel cage here into the deep holes, and then they would fill it with concrete, and that forms the foundation for the bridge. And then they build these bent caps. So the picture on the left here is all of the rebar that goes into these concrete elements before they fill it up with rebar. The picture on the right is the completed bent cap that sits on top of the pile that's going down into the creek. And then that bent cap is what the girders sit on. So here is always a big day on a project is erecting the girders. So here's a photo of the first girder on the north side of the bridge. So the two workers in the foreground are sitting on one of those bent caps and the girder is being lowered, and it sits each end on 2 bent caps and spans. And you still see at this point, this is when we're building the northern half. So the old southern half is still in the picture there. Once the girders are in, they start building the deck that everybody is driving on today. So here's a photo of that operation that basically fills in all the voids between the girders and makes the flat driving surface that we see today. And there's some overhead shots that show this moving from left to right. So the first picture on the left here, the old bridge is still on the right of this photo. And then all the cranes are kind of in the middle. And then the trestle is to the left of this first photo. And you see these little finger trestles, these mini trestles that are coming off of the major trestle. That's what the crane sits on while it's drilling these piles down into the creek bed. And then as you can see on the second photo here, they started to put the girders. This is what it looks like when they have all the girders on the north half of the bridge. Again, you're looking at 3 components here from left to right, the trestle, north half of the new bridge, and then the old bridge still there. And then the next photo is once they've got the deck on the north half of the new bridge. So the bridge is half built at this point in the far right photo. You still see the old bridge there in the middle, and then on the right, now you have a trestle built on the south side of the bridge. So the trestle on the north side is gone because they built the north side, and now they built a new trestle on the south side, and they're going to start the same thing again. So taking apart, going from left to right. The trestle is there. They've taken the bridge deck off. So here you see the new northern half of the bridge. And then this is when they're just doing the demo. So the next photo is the old bridge is almost gone. And then on the right, again, you see these little finger trestles coming out here to use as a platform for drilling down into the creek bed. Here, moving on a little bit, they've already got the girders on the south half. Again, the trestle there. And then here a few weeks ago, so they finished the south half and the trestle is gone, and just finishing touches remaining on the bridge. And here's a couple of photos from the ribbon cutting day for the completed bridge. Here's a spreadsheet that I've shown as we've gone through each session to show you what the progress is. So at this point, we're 1,486 days out of 1,491. Even though the bridge is finished, there's some minor work. For those of you that have driven through, have noticed that the traffic signal at South Alicio and Bon Air is still on red flash. So that was the condition by choice during construction to manage the traffic. And then as a project completed, it's to be turned back into full operation. But that signal actually has some special signals built into it for strictly for bicycles also. And so it needs some software updates in the controller so that those bicycle signals will work. So we're working on updating the controller for that. And then when that's complete, they will turn that signal on. And then there's a pump station, some issues at the pump station. 2 of the 3 pumps are in. One of them is missing and needed to be repaired and is scheduled to be installed. And then there's some some check valves in the pump station that need to be swapped out too. So a few remaining things to be done. And then the next item is the change orders. We track change orders. Caltrans allows us a 10% allowance on top of our contract amount. So for the awarded amount, we had about 2.7 million of contingency allowance. To date, we've only spent $784,000 in change orders. So that's a testament to the design team that put a project together and a set of plans that didn't require a lot of change orders and unforeseen conditions out in the field. And then also a great contractor to work with, Golden State Bridge, did a great job finishing the on time and didn't really eat into the contingency allowance. And then our construction management team of pre-science that were out there every day. When you went out there and drove through, the city's representatives in the field were myself and pre-science engineers who were there making sure that everything that's out there got built the way it was to be designed, and we got every square inch of concrete that we paid for. And so the final construction costs looking like a little over 27 million. There's still some final bills that have to be crunched through and some final payments to be made. But that's where the numbers are at the end of June. And then, as I mentioned, we did have an event out at the site on June 23rd. The sidewalks and traffic lanes are all open. And that's concludes everything I had to share. So I'm available for any questions.
Are there,
Go ahead.
please, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting you're up there, Dan. You're staring down at us. I just wanted to say again, thank you, Julian. Hamid put together the vision for this project and you made it happen. And I watched it all because I live over in Greenbrae and I crossed that bridge during the construction phase almost every day with members of my family. And it was a wonder to behold. Just watching from day to day the progress that was made, the care that was used by everyone involved with the construction team and making sure it was done safely and efficiently and in a beautiful fashion. So I want to thank you very much for that. I think everyone in this room and online would share those sentiments. I did have one question. I think I asked it one time before in the middle of the construction. There was a slide that you had earlier, you don't have to put it back up, that depicted some of the rebar with kind of purple wrapping on it. And I think when that was going in, I actually asked the question, why did we have to have purple rebar? I think you answered it, but I don't remember what the answer was. So I'm asking it again.
Yeah, so the purple rebar is a special requirement for reinforcement steel in a marine environment. So that's a Caltrans requirement. You've probably seen regular green epoxy rebar from time to time. But the purple rebar is specially made for the saltwater environment to protect it from corrosion.
Good color choice.
Other questions from council members or comments?
Yeah, I just had one comment. I am just thrilled that both of you are here because this project encapsulated the vision and the follow through, and both were incredibly difficult. It took incredible people to be able to manage it, to see the vision, to have the vision, take place, to manage a $27 million project and come in at $27 million is just incredible. So we in Larkspur are tremendously grateful that we have had both of you at the helm for this project because it would not have been as successful, I don't think, with other people. So thank you. We appreciate it.
I think those comments are shared by all of us. Thank you for those. Other council member comments or questions? If not, I'll ask if there are members of the public that would like to ask questions or make comments. And I would ask for Allison to help identify anybody in the queue.
I'm looking for anyone within the council chambers or anyone joining by the Zoom meeting to raise their hand. There's no public comment.
I understood that we have a former council member in the chambers. Would that member of the public like to make any comments this evening?
Yeah, my name is Ron Arliss. I preceded a couple of you and was I was the council member referenced by Hamid. Our goal was to spend whatever was necessary to make it a safe bridge, but not a signature bridge. The council that I was on for 20 years was very, very, very careful of spending the money. And I must say a couple of times, we were the only city in the state of California that had a balanced budget and no debt. But Councilmember Haroff, I lived 3 houses from that bridge. So you may have driven across it. I lived through all the banging, pile driving for 4.5 years.
Oh, okay, you win.
But I do want to say what I said at the ribbon cutting. I was watching those construction guys every day. My wife used to ask if I was going out to help manage it, and I'd say, yeah. They were incredible. I never saw them sitting around. They were always moving. And I think that was part of the reason it came in on time and on budget. They were multitasking and they were always working very hard. So my hat's off to them. It was a great selection for that construction company. And I would stop off every once in a while at their office if there was some problem, because I was on the rowing team and some of the stuff they would put in the creek would mess things up, and they would always take care of it then pretty fast. So again, I'm real happy the way it turned out. And I think both Julian and Hamid both deserve the credit that you guys are giving to them.
Thank you.
Well, I want to express my appreciation. I want to express my personal appreciation and gratitude to you for your leadership during key moments in the process, and also your on the ground observations and feedback that illustrate the key openness necessary between the project team and the community, which was very patient through this entire process. Without those two things acting together, in balance as best we could, we would not have had the goodwill that was maintained through this project that we've had. And we're really, really grateful to you and other former council members and mayors that helped get us through this. Other members of the public that would like to comment on this presentation this evening?
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Larry Chu.
Hi.
Hi. You know, I came in a year after they made the decision, so that was like 2003. And I went out 2019, so didn't quite see it to the end. But, you know, I'd like to echo a lot of the comments that were made in terms of what I think made for a really successful project here. And it's not just this project. I think one of the key principles, past, present, and hopefully future, with the way this city is run is really important to, this is just an example, because the city manager and public works director can probably go back and tell you that we have a lot of projects that are on time, on budget, and sometimes under budget. So, you know, within my tenure, the large ones were like, well, now the Bon Air Bridge, but we had the other two bridges. We had the police station. And, you know, like anything else, council members take the responsibility. So what's key there is, as a former, you know, CEO of a company I worked for, when we were doing investment banking deals, he always said, you have to give senior level attention to every deal. And that's what makes it successful. So we provide oversight without micromanaging. And then you have key staff like our public works directors, our city managers, everyone that they work with, to provide us with that information to make sure that we can make good decisions and that they're hiring good people like the companies that we're using. And that's what makes us successful. One of the things I think that Hamid kind of diminished in terms of his participation, yeah, he kind of inferred that he had 5 weeks every day in court. But had it not been for his testimony and expertise, we would have never been able to convince the jury that we could beat a big company. It was a David and Goliath thing. So for everyone in this room, some people who have been in the past, and certainly Mayor Hilmer, who was here in the end for the whole thing. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your participation and contributions to this asset. Are there other members of the public that would like to comment or ask questions on this presentation?
I'm looking for any further raised hands, and there's no further public comment.
Dan, do we have any further discussion on this item?
I think that's it, Mr. Mayor. Want to just thank Julian Skinner and Meet Shamspor for coming and talking about their experiences. We've just been so fortunate in this community to have the support of our residents. These are big projects and they can be disruptive. And frankly, I think one of the most amazing things that's a testament to the crews that were out there working is I didn't get a lot of complaints over 4 years. And I can't say that too often about a big project like that. So hats off.
I'll just add that on the day of the ribbon cutting, I made sure that I went early and got a chance to talk to everybody that had a hard hat on and thank them for the consistent sensitivity to the community and all their hard work to keep that roadway open for 4 years while this project was successfully completed. And without exception, every one of them said it was a real treat to work with such a great project team that had their act together such that things went so smoothly. So it's a real tribute to all the leadership on the project team and the city staff for making such a complex project look so easy. Thank you so much on behalf of the community and the council. And with that, we'll adjourn this meeting and we'll reconvene at 6:30 for our regular meeting. Thank you very much.
We get cookies though, don't we?
Party on, Kevin.